Chapter 1. The Arrival of the Little Starborn. In the furthest reaches of the Andromeda Rift, where the glow of nebulae cast eerie hues on the silent expanse of space, Captain Marcus Hall piloted his aging salvage vessel, the Wanderer, through a debris field littered with the remains of forgotten battles and abandoned dreams. The galaxy had grown cold and indifferent out here far from the glittering core worlds, beyond the sprawling metropolises and diplomatic hubs where empires played their intricate games. This was a place where time slowed, where relics of countless civilizations floated like ghosts waiting to be reclaimed, repurposed, or left to rot. Marcus, a man who once soared through the stars as a decorated Earth space fleet pilot, now found solace in the quiet anonymity of this fringe sector. His ship was battered, patched over more times than he cared to count, but it was home. The hum of the engines, the rhythmic blinking of worn consoles, and the endless dark outside the viewport had become familiar companions to a man who had given up on the grand stage of galactic politics and war. Yet, even in the loneliest corners of the cosmos, life had a way of surprising those who dared to linger. During a routine sweep of a derelict colony ship, an ancient vessel thought lost during the last great conflict that had shattered alliances and burned entire star systems, Marcus detected an anomalous signal. Faint, irregular, almost imperceptible. It was a soft, plaintive sound, unlike the mechanical groans or automated distress calls he was used to. Following his gut and the sensor blips, he maneuvered the Wanderer closer to the hulking silhouette of the wreck, the cold metal exterior scarred by meteor impacts and age. As he boarded, the stale air reeked of decay and abandonment, a mausoleum drifting in the void. The corridors were dark and twisted, illuminated only by flickering emergency lights struggling against the encroaching shadows. But then, from the farthest recesses of the lower decks, came a faint noise, something impossibly fragile amidst the deathly quiet cry. With cautious steps and weapon ready, Marcus traced the sound to a sealed maintenance chamber, the hatch hanging loose on its hinges. Inside, amidst the tangled wires and ruined consoles, he found her, a small alien child no older than 5 Earth years, huddled beneath a makeshift blanket woven from torn fabric of unknown origin. Her skin shimmered faintly, an ethereal glow that pulsed softly with the rhythm of her heartbeat, hues shifting subtly between lavender and silver. Her eyes were vast pools of violet light, sparkling like twin stars, reflecting the cosmic abyss she had somehow survived. She looked up at him with a mixture of fear and hope, clutching a crumpled insignia, a faded emblem of her lost homeworld, a world devastated by relentless war and political treachery that had shattered her people into scattered fragments across the stars. Marcus lowered his weapon, the weight of loneliness lifting in an instant as a fierce protective instinct welled within him. He wrapped his jacket around her small shoulders and whispered softly, "You're safe now. I won't let anything happen to you." Her lips trembled as she tried to speak, but the trauma of loss and isolation had stolen her voice. Instead, she nestled closer to him, her tiny hands clutching his in silent trust. The child, whom he would soon name Lyra, became the living pulse of hope in the cold, mechanical heart of the Wanderer. The journey that followed was arduous. The nearest station capable of sheltering Lyra from the cold bureaucracy of galactic authorities was hundreds of light years away. Along the way, Marcus faced suspicion and hostility from officials who questioned the legality of harboring an alien child with no known guardianship or documentation. Lyra's unique physiology and mysterious origins made her a subject of interest and threat in equal measure. Secret factions, old enemies from the shadows of the last war, seemed to emerge from the void, their motives unclear but clearly tied to the child's survival. Marcus had to navigate treacherous alliances and old grudges while safeguarding the fragile life that had been entrusted to him by fate. Despite the peril, Lyra blossomed under his care. Her laughter, a melodic sound that seemed almost alien itself, filled the corridors of his ship. She was curious and bright, asking endless questions about stars, planets, and the myriad creatures that inhabited the galaxy. Marcus found himself relearning wonder through her innocent eyes. She taught him the value of family beyond blood ties, of compassion in a universe often defined by cold pragmatism and violence. Yet, the shadow of her past loomed over them, a past that would not remain silent forever. Far away, across star systems and political divides, Seraphina, the reigning queen of Lyra's homeworld and a figure of immense power and mystique, was roused by whispers carried through the galactic grapevine. Her daughter had been missing since the chaos of the recent conflicts, presumed lost or worse. The revelation that Lyra was alive and in the care of a human sent shockwaves through the intricate webs of her empire. Seraphina's motivations were complex, duty and desperation intertwined with an unexpected longing to reclaim not just her child, but to understand the strange bond that had formed between Marcus and Lyra. As she marshaled her forces for a journey across light years, her mind wrestled with conflicting emotions: fear for her daughter's safety, pride in the resilience of this human who had saved her, and a burgeoning desire to become part of this new family. As the first chapter of their intertwined destinies unfolded, Marcus, Lyra, and the approaching queen were all poised on the precipice of a profound transformation. The abandoned starship where Marcus found Lyra was more than a relic. It was a symbol of survival, hope, and the unbreakable ties that could form in the darkest corners of the universe. The fragile child, once lost and alone, was now the axis upon which the fate of worlds might turn, and the future of an unlikely family would challenge everything they thought they knew about loyalty, love, and belonging. Marcus spent sleepless nights aboard the Wanderer, the pale glow of distant stars casting long shadows across the ship's cramped quarters as he kept a watchful eye on Lyra. The child's presence had transformed his once solitary existence into something utterly unfamiliar and profoundly meaningful. Each morning, he awoke to find her perched by the viewport, eyes wide as she traced the shimmering trails of light left by passing nebulae, or marveled at the distant suns burning fiercely against the void. Her curiosity was insatiable, and her intelligence far beyond what one would expect from a child so young, perhaps a gift of her alien heritage, or a survival instinct honed in the chaos of exile. She often reached out her small hand to touch the controls, mimicking the motions Marcus used to pilot the ship, as if she were preparing herself for a future among the stars. But despite her innocence, Lyra carried with her a silent sorrow. At times, her violet eyes would glaze over with memories she could not articulate, fragments of a home lost in the ashes of war, of faces blurred by pain and absence. Marcus sensed that beneath her fragile exterior lay a well of strength forged in unimaginable adversity. He made it his mission not only to protect her body but to nurture the light within her spirit, a fragile ember that, if left to flicker alone, might have been extinguished by the harshness of the universe. His own heart, long scarred by loss and solitude, found itself softened by this small being who trusted him implicitly, who sought in him the warmth and safety that had been stolen from her. Their days were filled with routine, repairs to the ship, runs to distant trading posts for supplies, and the quiet moments when Marcus taught Lyra to read the stars and navigate the cosmic ocean. He created a small garden of bioluminescent plants in a corner of the ship, a tiny sanctuary where Lyra could touch living things, feel their pulse, and hear the soft whisper of growth amid the sterile steel walls. It was here that she laughed freely for the first time, a sound so pure and unexpected that it shattered Marcus's long-held cynicism. Through those moments, a bond forged not by blood but by trust deepened between them. Yet, as much as Marcus sought to shield Lyra from the galaxy's harsh realities, the universe was a patient hunter. Word of the lost starborn child spread through shadowed networks and whispered channels, carried by bounty hunters, political agents, and old warlords hungry for leverage. The emblem she wore, a delicate relic etched with the crest of a powerful alien house, became a beacon, drawing attention from those who would exploit her for their own ends. Marcus found himself embroiled in a game of cat and mouse, where each gesture of kindness was met with suspicion, and every ally could turn into a foe. In the heart of her star system, Queen Seraphina paced in the vast chambers of her palace, her mind racing with conflicting emotions. She was a ruler known for her unyielding will and sharp intellect, but the loss of her daughter had carved a hollow she could not fill with politics or power. Hearing that Lyra was alive, cared for by a human no less, stirred something within her, a mixture of hope, doubt, and an undeniable curiosity about this man who had taken her child from the shadows of despair into the fragile light of a new existence. Serafina's advisors urged caution, warning of the dangers in trusting a species so alien, yet her heart insisted on a path less trodden. She resolved not only to reclaim her daughter, but to understand the family Marcus had built in her absence. As the Wanderer slipped through hyperspace toward the outer rim, Marcus stared at the small sleeping figure of Lyra, contemplating the journey ahead. The stakes had grown beyond simple survival. They were now entwined in a cosmic tale of motherhood, loyalty, and the possibility of a family forged across stars and species. The arrival of Serafina was inevitable, and with it came a challenge to the fragile harmony they had created. Yet beneath the uncertainty, Marcus harbored a quiet conviction whatever trials awaited, the family he had chosen would face them together, bound by love, courage, and the enduring hope that no one was truly lost when found by kindness. Chapter 2. The Queen's Approach and the Shifting Stars. The stars seemed to hold their breath as the Wanderer sliced through the hyperspace corridor, speeding away from the fragmented sectors of forgotten wreckage and toward the gleaming stronghold of a distant empire. Captain Marcus Hall sat at the helm, his gaze fixed on the blinking console before him, but his mind was far from the routine navigation charts and sensor readouts. In the quiet hum of the ship's core, he could feel the weight of an unseen presence looming on the horizon, a presence that carried the full force of centuries of heritage, political intrigue, and maternal instinct. The very knowledge that Queen Serafina, sovereign of Lyra's homeworld and one of the most formidable figures in the galaxy, was journeying to reclaim her daughter added a complicated gravity to every decision Marcus made. The universe was no longer a boundless expanse where he could hide in the shadows. The fragile family he had formed was now the center of a cosmic storm. Serafina's starship was a marvel of alien engineering, vast and graceful, gliding through space with an elegance that belied its formidable arsenal. On board, the Queen's chambers were filled with the soft light of shimmering orbs and the scent of rare exotic bloom, symbols of life and renewal that Serafina clung to in the midst of her turbulent reign. She stood by a towering viewport, watching the swirling nebulas and glittering stars that framed the path ahead. The weight of rulership pressed upon her, yet her thoughts were consumed by Lyra, her lost daughter, the living embodiment of her legacy and hopes for the future. Memories flooded her mind. The tender moments before the chaos, the anguish of separation, and the whispers of legends that spoke of a human who had taken the child into his care. There was anger, yes, and suspicion. How could she trust a species so alien? But beneath it all was a yearning, a desire to bridge the vast gulf between worlds and to find in Marcus something more than just a caretaker, a partner in this unexpected family. Back aboard the Wanderer, Marcus meticulously prepared for Serafina's arrival. He had spent years navigating the treacherous waters of galactic diplomacy, and he knew the arrival of a queen was no small event. Yet, the thought of facing Serafina filled him with conflicting emotions. He admired her strength and command, but feared her expectations and the political tides that she brought with her. More than that, he worried for Lyra. How would the child react to the return of the mother she barely remembered? Would the queen accept the family Marcus had built with her daughter, or would she see him as an interloper threatening to sever the bonds of blood and heritage? These questions haunted Marcus, stirring a restless determination in his heart. Lyra, for her part, was beginning to sense the changes around her. Though young, she possessed a keen awareness beyond her years, her violet eyes often drifting toward the stars with a mixture of wonder and longing. The quiet moments she shared with Marcus were filled with stories of distant worlds and dreams of belonging. She clung to the small tokens he had found alongside her, the faded insignia, a smooth stone carved with ancient symbols, and the soft blanket that still carried faint traces of her lost home. Yet, the child was no stranger to fear and uncertainty. The whispered conversations between Marcus and his contacts, the sudden shifts in their course, and the increasing presence of unfamiliar ships nearby made her restless. She would often retreat to the small garden of bioluminescent plants Marcus had nurtured for her, a place where life flourished in defiance of the cold metal world outside. There, she found solace in the gentle glow and the quiet companionship of growing things, her small hands tracing the delicate leaves as if seeking answers in their fragile resilience. As the distance closed between the human ship and the Queen's imposing vessel, a delicate dance of diplomacy began. The initial communications were cautious and formal, laced with the subtleties of power and protocol that marked Serafina's rule. Marcus found himself navigating a labyrinth of cultural nuances, his every word weighed against the backdrop of ancient customs and the unyielding expectations of an empire. Serafina's voice was commanding yet tinged with a rare vulnerability when she spoke of Lyra, a blend of a monarch's authority and a mother's fierce love. Through the transmissions, Marcus glimpsed the complex woman behind the crown, a ruler shaped by war and loss, yet yearning for connection beyond the throne. The arrival at the rendezvous point was marked by the hum of massive engines and the radiant flare of docking protocols. The two ships, embodiments of vastly different worlds, aligned with a slow, deliberate grace. Marcus prepared to welcome Serafina aboard the Wanderer, knowing that the next moments would define the fragile future they all sought. As the airlock hissed open and the Queen stepped across the threshold, her presence was overwhelming, a figure of regal bearing, clad in flowing garments that shimmered like the night sky, eyes sharp with the wisdom of ages, yet softened by the sight of her daughter. Lyra's reaction was immediate and profound. She ran into her mother's arms, a cry of recognition and relief breaking the silence that had long separated them. The reunion was bittersweet, filled with unspoken questions and tentative hope. Serafina embraced Marcus with a gaze that balanced gratitude and appraisal, acknowledging the man who had risked everything to save her child. The Queen's decision to join the family Marcus had created was unprecedented, signaling a willingness to bridge the gulf between their worlds and rewrite the destinies that had long been dictated by bloodlines and politics. Together, they faced the uncertain horizon, bound by a shared commitment to protect Lyra and nurture a family forged not just by birthright, but by choice and love. As the chapter closed, the stars outside seemed to shimmer brighter, reflecting the new constellation of hope and unity that was being born in the vastness of space, a family against all odds, ready to face whatever the galaxy might bring. Chapter 3, Bonds Forged in Fire and Stars. The vast corridors of the Wanderer hummed softly beneath the feet of its unlikely occupants, the steady pulse of machinery blending with the quieter rhythms of a fragile family learning to coexist under the same roof. It was a universe of contrasts, an ancient, battered salvage vessel far from the polished halls of imperial power, now hosting the queen of a distant star system, her lost daughter, and a solitary human who had defied fate to forge a new path. The tensions that had simmered beneath the surface since Serafina's arrival were beginning to ripple outward, touching every corner of their shared existence, demanding reckoning and understanding. Serafina moved through the ship's cramped quarters with the regal grace of a ruler accustomed to command, yet beneath her poised exterior lay a storm of conflicting emotions. Her every step was measured, a delicate dance between asserting her authority as Lyra's mother and surrendering to the vulnerability that the years of separation had carved into her heart. The Queen was a living paradox, unyielding in her duties to her people and empire, yet tender and unsure when faced with the child who had survived unimaginable horrors and the man who had protected her like his own flesh and blood. Laid into the artificial night cycles, she would retreat to her quarters, gazing out at the swirling cosmos with a gaze that sought answers beyond the stars. Could she reconcile the unbending expectations of her throne with the unpredictable, messy reality of family life? Would Marcus be an ally or a rival in the quest to reclaim what she had lost? Marcus, for his part, grappled with his own doubts and fears. He was a man forged by the harsh realities of war and loss, yet nothing in his experience had prepared him for the delicate balancing act demanded by this new family. His bond with Lyra was undeniable, rooted in months of shared hardship and quiet joy, but the arrival of her mother introduced a complex layer of history and expectation he could neither ignore nor fully comprehend. There were moments when he felt like a trespasser in a world not his own, navigating protocols and unspoken rules that belonged to a culture alien in every sense. Yet his resolve remained steadfast to protect Lyra, to honor the family they had created, and to find a way for all of them to coexist despite the gulf between their worlds. The days that followed were a tapestry of tentative steps and fragile negotiations. Serafina sought to bridge the distance with gentle gestures, teaching Lyra the ancient songs of her people, introducing her to the lore of their stars, and sharing stories of valor and sacrifice that had shaped their civilization. Lyra, in turn, absorbed these lessons with wide-eyed fascination, her young mind eager to weave together the fragments of her past with the reality of her present. Yet, even in these moments of connection, the undercurrents of tension persisted. The Queen's presence unsettled the rhythms Marcus and Lyra had established, and old wounds both personal and political refused to be ignored. One evening, as the ship drifted through the silent beauty of a distant star cluster, Marcus found himself alone with Seraphina in the dim glow of the command deck. The Queen's expression was unreadable, her eyes reflecting the kaleidoscope of stars beyond the viewport. "You have done what few could," she said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of both gratitude and challenge. "You saved her. You gave her life when all seemed lost." There was a pause, thick with unspoken meaning. "But saving is not the same as raising. I need to understand the man who has claimed my daughter's heart." Marcus met her gaze steadily, the years of battle and hardship etched into the lines of his face. "She's more than a daughter to me," he replied, voice steady despite the surge of emotion beneath. "She's my family, and I want to believe that doesn't have to be a barrier between us." The Queen studied him, the tension between them a fragile thread stretched taut across the chasm of their vastly different worlds. "Family," she whispered, "is a bond forged in fire and stars, but also tested by time and choice." Their conversation marked a turning point, a moment when the past and future collided, and the foundation of their shared family began to take shape amidst uncertainty. As days turned into weeks, the three of them navigated the fragile dance of cohabitation, each learning to respect and accept the other's place in the tapestry of their lives. Lyra blossomed between two worlds, her laughter echoing through the halls like a beacon of hope, while Marcus and Seraphina forged a tentative alliance built on mutual respect and a shared devotion to the child they both cherished. But the galaxy beyond the Wanderer remained indifferent to their personal struggles. Political forces stirred in the shadows, factions loyal to the Queen's rivals whispered of kidnapping and betrayal, and agents of power sought to exploit Lyra's existence as a pawn in a much larger game. The fragile family was under siege, not only by external threats, but by the fears and doubts that lurked within each of them. It was a crucible that would test their resolve, their loyalty, and their capacity for love beyond the boundaries of blood and species. Amidst this turmoil, Marcus found unexpected strength in Seraphina's presence. Despite their differences, she was a formidable ally, her strategic mind and command of resources complementing his battle-hardened pragmatism. Together, they began to unravel the web of intrigue threatening Lyra's safety, uncovering conspiracies that reached into the highest echelons of power. The partnership that had once seemed unlikely became a force to be reckoned with, forged in the fires of necessity and tempered by a growing understanding that family was more than biology. It was the choice to stand together when the stars themselves seemed to fall. Lyra, at the center of this cosmic storm, became a symbol of hope and unity. Her innocence and resilience inspired those around her, reminding them of what was at stake beyond politics and power struggles. She learned to navigate the complex dance of her dual heritage, embracing the strength of her alien lineage while cherishing the warmth of the human love that had saved her. In her eyes shone the promise of a future where worlds could coexist and families could be born from the ashes of loss and betrayal. As Chapter 3 unfolded, the family stood united against the gathering darkness, their bonds tested but unbroken. The galaxy was vast and often cruel, but within the cramped quarters of the Wanderer, a new constellation was forming, a constellation not of stars, but of hearts intertwined across the infinite expanse, shining with a light fierce enough to defy even the deepest void. Chapter 4: A New Dawn Among the Stars. The cosmos beyond the Wanderer stretched into infinity, a tapestry of light and shadow that had borne witness to countless stories of loss and redemption, of empires rising and falling beneath the watchful eyes of distant suns. Within the ship's metal embrace, however, another story was reaching its crescendo, a story not of conquest or conflict, but of reconciliation, courage, and the quiet, unyielding power of love forged across worlds. Marcus, Seraphina, and Lyra stood at the threshold of a new beginning, their intertwined fates poised to challenge the very definitions of family, loyalty, and belonging in a galaxy forever fractured by war and suspicion. The weeks following Seraphina's arrival had been a whirlwind of discovery and adaptation. The Queen's presence had altered the rhythm of life aboard the ship in profound ways, introducing customs and traditions from her homeworld that Marcus had never imagined but soon came to respect. Lyra was at the heart of it all, a bridge between two vastly different cultures, embodying both the fierce independence of her mother's people and the gentle warmth of the human world Marcus had offered her. Watching her navigate the complex tapestry of her identity was both heartwarming and heartrending. The child's laughter was a balm to the wounds of the past, yet the shadows of abandonment and fear still flickered in her eyes when the weight of her dual heritage pressed too heavily. Seraphina herself was transformed by the experience. The iron-willed monarch who had once ruled from a throne of cold authority now found herself softened by the bonds of motherhood and the unexpected kinship she had forged with Marcus. Their relationship was a delicate dance, sometimes fraught with tension and misunderstanding, other times blossoming into mutual respect and genuine affection. Together, they confronted the legacies of their pasts and the threats looming on the horizon, united in their determination to protect Lyra and build a future where she could thrive beyond the confines of loss and exile. Yet, the galaxy was relentless in its indifference. News of Lyra's survival and the fragile alliance aboard the Wanderer had spread like wildfire, igniting old rivalries and political machinations. Factions loyal to rival houses and remnants of the war sought to exploit the child's existence as a pawn to destabilize Seraphina's reign and seize power. Marcus and Seraphina found themselves besieged not only by external enemies, but also by the creeping doubt that the tenuous peace they had forged might unravel at any moment. Their every move was shadowed by spies and assassins, and the very air around them seemed charged with impending conflict. In the face of such adversity, the family's resilience was tested as never before. Marcus took on the mantle of protector with renewed vigor, his combat-hardened instincts sharpening as he devised strategies to safeguard those he loved. Seraphina marshaled her political acumen and loyalists, rallying forces that spanned star systems and weaving alliances with unlikely partners. And Lyra, though young, demonstrated a strength that belied her years, a burgeoning understanding of her place in the universe and the power she wielded simply by existing. She became a beacon of hope for those who dared to believe in unity beyond blood and species, inspiring loyalty and courage in the hearts of many. The climax of their struggle came swiftly and unexpectedly. A coordinated assault on the Wanderer by mercenaries hired by rival factions threatened to tear the fragile family apart. The corridors once filled with laughter and light were plunged into chaos as blaster fire echoed and alarms blared. Marcus fought with fierce determination, his every move fueled by the desire to shield Seraphina and Lyra. Seraphina, wielding both command and ancient technologies unique to her lineage, turned the tide with a combination of strategy and raw power. Lyra, despite the danger, remained resolute, her eyes blazing with a fierce light as she tapped into abilities that even Marcus was only beginning to understand. When the dust settled, the attackers were defeated, but the cost had been great. The family, tested in the crucible of battle, emerged not broken but bonded more tightly than ever. In the aftermath, Marcus and Seraphina stood together on the command deck, watching the stars streak by as the ship moved toward a new destination, a sanctuary where Lyra could grow safely, and where their unconventional family could begin to heal and thrive. It was in that moment, surrounded by the infinite expanse of space and the unspoken promises of tomorrow, that the true meaning of their journey crystallized. Family was not merely a matter of blood or duty, it was the choice to stand together through darkness and light, to embrace the unknown with open hearts, and to find in one another the strength to defy a galaxy that too often sought to divide. Lyra, nestled between Marcus and Seraphina, smiled a radiant, hopeful smile that illuminated the cold metal walls and warmed even the darkest corners of the universe. She was home. The days following the fierce battle aboard the Wanderer unfolded with a weighty mixture of relief and resolve. The The scars etched into the ship's hull mirrored those carried silently by its inhabitants, reminders of the price paid for survival and the fragile victory they had earned together. Marcus, Seraphina, and Lyra moved forward cautiously, acutely aware that the galaxy beyond was rife with unseen threats, but also filled with endless possibility. Their family, born of chance and choice, had endured the harshest trials and emerged stronger, ready to face whatever horizons awaited. Seraphina devoted herself to rebuilding the alliances fractured by war and treachery. Her diplomatic efforts were tireless, navigating the labyrinth of galactic politics with renewed purpose, fueled by the love for her daughter and the respect growing between her and Marcus. In the quiet moments between councils and negotiations, she would retreat to the ship's observation deck, watching Lyra explore the gardens Marcus had nurtured, a small oasis of life and hope amid the cold steel. The child's laughter echoed softly, a sound that softened even the hardest edges of the queen's heart. It was a melody of new beginnings, a testament to the power of healing and the enduring strength of family. Marcus, too, found himself transformed. The once solitary salvage captain had become a steadfast protector and partner, his fierce devotion to Lyra and Seraphina illuminating facets of his soul he had long kept hidden. The journey had forced him to confront his fears, his doubts, and the ghosts of a past defined by loss. In their place, he found hope, a hope rooted not only in survival, but in the promise of belonging, of a future built on trust and love. Together, they forged a bond that transcended species and stars, a family united not by blood alone, but by the profound commitment to protect and nurture one another. Lyra blossomed in this environment, her dual heritage a source of strength and wonder. She embraced the stories and traditions of her mother's people while cherishing the warmth and safety Marcus provided. The child's unique abilities, a legacy of her alien lineage, became a symbol of possibility rather than fear, inspiring those around her to believe in a galaxy where differences were celebrated rather than feared. Her eyes, once shadowed by loss, now sparkled with curiosity and determination, a beacon of hope shining bright amid the darkness of space. As the wanderer charted a course toward a distant sanctuary, a hidden world known for its neutrality and protection, Marcus, Seraphina, and Lyra stood together on the ship's bridge. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a vast ocean of light and shadow, mystery and promise. In that moment, the past's burdens seemed to lighten, replaced by the radiant glow of new beginnings. Seraphina reached out, her hand resting gently on Marcus's shoulder, a silent acknowledgement of the partnership they had forged. Lyra slipped her small hand into theirs, completing the circle of a family bound by choice, courage, and the enduring power of love. The universe was vast and often unforgiving, but within the walls of their ship, and within the hearts of this extraordinary family, a new dawn was breaking. Together, they would navigate the stars not as solitary wanderers, but as a united constellation of hope, resilience, and belonging. The journey was far from over, but whatever the galaxy held, they would face it side by side, their bonds unbreakable, their spirits unyielding. And so, under the watchful gaze of distant suns and the endless canopy of stars, their story continued, an eternal testament to the strength found not just in bloodlines, but in the families we choose, the love we nurture, and the hope we carry across the infinite expanse of space. The end.